Hello, beautiful people, and welcome to Wild Nature Channel. This is a space where you can peel back all of the layers that no longer serve you and uncover the truth of who you really are. My name is Natalie, and I am here to provide you with tools and guidance to becoming the most wildly authentic, radiant, magnetic, empowered version of you. So welcome. Let's get started. So let's talk about harmony. What is harmony and how can you embody it in your life? So just a little bit of background of why I'm choosing this topic as my first video to kind of kick off this channel. This was inspired by my own journey of self-discovery and a little bit of guidance from Human Design Gene Keys. If any of y'all are into that perspective, give this video a like, thumbs up. But my sphere of purpose in the Gene Keys is all about finding that higher vibration of harmony. And it's moving from this perspective of corruption into this more elevated perspective of harmony. And for me, this has been a really powerful journey of self-reflection, as well as looking at the micro versus the macro. So let's talk about harmony in that sense. So what does it mean to find harmony? So if we find issues outside of ourselves that are really pulling on us, maybe we feel triggered by social issues that are going on, things in politics that are happening, we're feeling called to post, share things, get angry, have videos really pull us into our emotions when we watch them, and really kind of funnel our view into one side. So a great video that I watched that really started my shift in this perspective was The Social Dilemma. If you haven't seen it, highly recommend it. Don't know if it's still on Netflix, but if it is, give it a try, because it really helped to give me a perspective around social media and how polarizing it can be. So coming back to that micro versus macro. So we're looking at things outside of ourselves or in the world at large at a macro scale. So those are the things that are outside. They feel larger than us. Everything that happens outside of us has some form of reflection to give us about us on a micro level. And what I mean by this is look at the underlying wounding underneath some of these larger worldly, societal, political issues, and start to ask yourself where that wounding is a limiting belief that you hold within yourself. So for example, with like women's rights, there's a long history of this. It's starting to become more volatile in other countries outside of the US, and more attention has been brought to this. However, when we look at our own beliefs within, it will give us more understanding of why we feel so pulled into that. So maybe there's a belief that there is inequality. And yes, that is something that's reflected in the 3D reality around us. However, when we can start to shift that on a micro level, and that shift starts to expand throughout the world, those issues, I believe, on a macro level will cease to exist. If we believe that there is equality, if we believe that there's no one else that has power over us, when we start to resolve those issues within, and yeah, it's not something that can always be quickly reversed, like, oh yeah, you're right, no one has power over me. Yeah, that's just my reality now. I know, easier said than done sometimes. If you're into the law of assumption or law of attraction, that can be a really powerful way to start to shift those beliefs within you. But let's just kind of stick to that harmony aspect. So think about if we were to all change that that limiting belief within, how we would start to view the world around us. And energy is magnetic, energy amplifies, and the more that we shift on an individual level, so let's say, you start to shift and you start to have that conversation with some of your friends, and it starts to become a little contagious. The more that you are really in that energy, the more that energy is going to amplify, and it is going to start to shift the reality around you. So for me, this is one aspect of finding harmony, is when I do feel myself pulled into that perspective of corruption of the world around me. That's my cue to reel it back in and take a deep look at what may be imbalanced, or what limiting belief I may still hold that is the core wound of that issue. And then as I start to shift that issue, I notice over time that those things become less triggering to me. So that's one perspective of harmony. Finding that harmony within, shifting the stories within, so that you can view the macro level issues from a space of groundedness, from a space of maybe understanding. And I know that seems like a little strange, to try to understand why these issues happen out around us, but we can dive deeper into that on another video. And another thing I want to mention, so that's part one, the micro versus the macro. Now let's talk about the second part of harmony. So, there's that analogy that everyone has two wolves within them. And this can be pulling us into polarity. Maybe one's good, one's evil. Maybe one's positive thinking, one's negative thinking. Whatever that is for you, what those wolves are for you. And there's that analogy that, which one wins in a fight. And it's the one you feed. And this is true for everything. The more we feed something, the stronger it becomes. So if you water your plants, they're gonna get healthier unless you drown them. But if you water the plants you water, they're gonna grow. The pets that you care for, if you feed them, they're gonna get stronger and they're gonna get healthier. Hopefully feeding them healthy food and not junk like we sometimes feed ourselves as human. Another time discussion for that one. But the same principle applies to your thoughts. So those thoughts, they go out into the world as well. So the more you feed one thought or another, the more that's going to become apparent and reinforce the 3D reality around you. So for example, if you have a limiting belief of things always happen to me, this more victim mindset of why does my life always, fall apart at these moments, or why does this always happen to me? The more that you feed that thought, the more that you allow that to grow, the more dissonance is going to occur in your life. And dissonance is essentially, resonance is when vibrations are in harmony, and dissonance is when the vibrations are kind of clashing. So the more you have this dissonant perspective, the more that's going to be your reality, because you attract what you believe. Like attracts like. So if you hold on to this limiting belief internally, that thought is going to manifest in your reality everywhere. So that's another point regarding harmony. How you can find harmony within yourself is beginning to shift those thoughts, begin to feed the positive thoughts, whether that be through positive affirmation, whether that be through setting firm boundaries around the conversations that you are willing to have, or when you need to stop conversations that are no longer feeling good to you. And stopping the thoughts in that same way. Thoughts are a conversation with yourself, setting boundaries with yourself around those thoughts. So the things that you feed will continue to grow. And that happens externally too. And with this part two of, finding harmony and this understanding of harmony is understanding that not only do the thoughts that you feed grow, but the actions you do will continue to inspire other people's actions, inspire or create or result in other people's actions. And what I mean by that, a good analogy that came up when I was talking to a friend about this the other day was, think about nature. Think about animals in the wild. If an animal goes to battle another animal, they're just out for it, or they're trying to kill it. They're trying to get their food. They're trying to survive. Whatever it is, the natural instinct of that animal that is being attacked is to defend itself or run away. It has a strategy to survive. There is a defense strategy. And this somewhat more micro concept, because this is, animal to animal, not global, this somewhat more micro concept applies to the world at large. So think about any social issue that you are involved in or that just really pulls to you. And maybe you're a little more like me, where you've taken a more middle ground stance and have this just deeper understanding that everything in the world happens for a reason. But if you are not, think about it in this light. When it comes to racism, when it comes to women's rights, when it comes to whatever issue that you are fighting about, think about what you are fighting. And why is it something that needs to be fought? And what I mean by this is, I'm not saying that issues aren't important, that there aren't things that we need to tend to, but notice that difference in words. Fighting for or fighting against, because if you're fighting, you're always fighting against something. If you're tending to something, you're helping it grow. So when we fight against something, and usually it comes from a space of looking at the other side as evil. We're looking at the other side as it is corrupt. We are looking at the other side as it is doing wrong to the world, to people, to whoever. When we are fighting against it, we are fighting against an entity that has an ego too. The easiest way to dissolve that ego is to stop fighting it. Because the more you fight it, the ego's purpose is survival. It can get inflated in the more human sense, but when we talk about on an animal level, the ego is there for our survival. Without the ego, we would die. So the ego is there to keep us alive. And as humans, we can have skewed perspectives of what that means, but our psyche still perceives someone fighting against us as a threat. And so the instinct and response is always going to be to defend. Unless that whole other side is just woke and is like, I don't need to fight this battle, but we're not in that reality now. So think about that. The next time that you are bashing the other side, you are demonizing the other side, you are playing into this trauma triangle of the hero, the victim, or the villain, knowing that everyone has to lie on one of those pillars and it's no middle ground. The more we play into that, the more polarizing and the more that opposite side is going to grow to defend itself, because the ego is going to inflate. It is going to get larger because it is being attacked. That is its purpose. So think about that when you approach issues in your life, and as I mentioned before, there are things that are important for us to resolve. There are things that are important in this world that mean a lot to people, and the way that we want to approach it is with compassion and tenderness and understanding. Think about it this way. When it comes to politics, when it comes to women's rights, when it comes to whatever else. How many of you have thought about sitting down with the oppressor or sitting down with the villain of this circumstance in your life and having a conversation without being in that fight or flight nervous system? I need to defend, I need to fight for what I believe in. How many of you have sat down in a calm space and invited those people into tea, to have tea with you, and just tried to understand? And this is something where, if you think about harmony on all scales, when we resolve the issue on a micro level, it's going to reflect on the macro level. When we resolve the thoughts that we repeat to ourselves or the actions that we take, it is going to start to create more middle ground at large. Because we all, as humans, as individuals, we want to be understood. We want to be seen, we want to be heard. And if we treat people like they are the problem, that problem's going to continue to grow. Whatever you feed, again, the wolf you feed is going to be the one that wins the fight. It's going to be the one that grows. So this is another huge aspect of harmony that I feel like if we can start to really take a deeper look at ourselves and the thoughts that we have internally, the social issues that pull us being a reflection of a limiting belief that we hold within ourselves, and the need to fight, stating that there's something to fight against. If we were to shift all of that, we would be able to find harmony. And I believe that if we could shift those perspectives, that we would find a middle ground, not only in our own lives, but again, that vibration is going to grow. That vibration is going to amplify. The more that you start to do that, the more you'll find others that are going to start to have that perspective. And the more you'll start to notice people around you starting to shift that perspective and finding harmony within themselves and not getting triggered by all of the issues that happen around them. And you can apply this to your own life too. It doesn't have to be social issues or government issues or politics. This is something where sit with the things that trigger you in your closest relationships. There's a purpose behind it all. And that's what harmony, to me, that's what harmony means. So if we look at life like a symphony, every note, even if there's a minor note, which for those of you who are more versed in music, minor notes are usually the things that kind of bring the energy down, maybe give a more melancholy feel with the minor chords, or maybe you can bring in some anger with that. Even with those notes, they all, if you take a step back, they all come together to create the whole. And this is the last point that I want to bring up. And this one, the other few are kind of a lead up to this, because this is, if you don't have those first few in order, that micro versus the macro, or not versus, but the micro and the macro, we're not versing, we're not fighting it. And then the thoughts that you feed growing, the things that you fighting back or defending, all of those I think are pertinent to understanding that there is an innate harmony in the world. And so this is the more macro perspective. Take a big step back. Look at the world at large. Look at the world from a more expansive point of view. If you look at that in that way, you will see that every issue, social issue, everything that has happened in the history of the world has happened to create growth. It has happened to inspire people to make change. And that's true for us on a macro level and on a micro level. If you look at your own life, look at all of the things that have happened in this life for you to grow through. and try to look at them from a perspective of this happened through me and for me to grow, rather than this happened to me, which brings us into a victim mentality. So this is the last point that I want to make about harmony, which I think is a really powerful shift that we can make. So look at the instances in your own life. Pick the core wound in that and see what it has taught you over time. Look at maybe failures that you've had in your life, which, failures for me are just a doorway to what was truly meant for you. But looking at things that maybe didn't work out in your favor, and then seeing what happened after that. And looking at relationships in your life that didn't pan out, and looking at the lessons that have been received from that. And maybe, this is the first time that you're hearing this. And so for you, it could be that you are still in this state of things are happening to me. And if you are in that state, I really encourage you to take a look at the underlying message of the things that have happened in your life. And what is it asking you to do? And for me, a lot of what has happened in my life has been leading me to my own path of empowerment. And I firmly believe that I am in this path of empowerment so that I can bring it back to you. And for me, harmony is a huge step. Is a huge step in empowerment, because it brings us to this space that things aren't happening to us all the time. Things aren't going wrong all the time. There is no good or bad. Everything just is. And so I encourage you to, if you're listening to this, take some time to reflect on where you have found dis-ease in your life. Where have you found dissonance in your life? What are you maybe still in the process of overcoming or struggling through? If you are in that space of feeling like you're struggling and trying to make it through, sit with that. Allow yourself to feel into it. Allow yourself to really take a dive into the underlying message of what it has to bring. This could be something about worthiness. This could be something about not feeling that you are worthy of love, worthy of money, worthy of a happy life, whatever it might be, or it can be something else. But take a look at that. And that's going to be the key to where you can find harmony through this. Take a step back. Look at it from a wider scope. And you'll see that harmony is imminent. Everything is happening for you. Everything in this world is happening for a reason. It is to bring to light what needs to expand, what we need to grow through. So, thank you for listening. I appreciate you guys visiting my channel. If this resonated with you at all, feel free to give this video a thumbs up. Feel free to subscribe to my channel. And I hope to catch you on the flip side. And in the meantime, keep finding that space of empowerment and harmony within you, because you are so worth it. And I love you. You are beautiful. And I'll catch you next time.